Alright, I'm back for another part. So what my goal is today, I got new fenders and I got a Cor Sport that is already stripped down to nothing. It's not the Cor Sport off the truck, it's another one. I just didn't want to strip the one down just yet because I'm still using it for other things. But I want to put the Cor Sport on, put the fenders on, and what I want to do, where they normally would rub in the back, because I'm running 14 wides and 33 1450s, and it's just really a leveling kit, and I don't really want to go any more than that, but I also don't want to rub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually trim down the backs and weld in some metal, just so once it's all done and painted, I don't have to worry about my wheels and tires rubbing my fenders and ruining my new paint job. So really my goal for today is just get everything kind of put on and get that shaved down and get the fenders cleaned up and ready for when I get them painted. So these are my new fenders I got. I got obviously both sides. So they are aftermarket. A lot of people, they really think aftermarket's awful, but as many cars as I've worked on, honestly, the OEM's not always that great either, because, and I don't know if it's proven, but from what I've always been told, OEM parts, they're just the parts that weren't good enough to go on the vehicles in the first place. So obviously the fender probably ain't gonna fit the greatest, but you can definitely make them work. And I didn't want to spend OEM money for fenders that I was just gonna cut up anyways. So really the big thing, if you have any of these Chevy trucks, is that right in here, when you go to start turning, it just wants to rub. And these wheel wells, they're just not made for big wheels and tires. And I'll put in some pictures. A lot of people have done what they call the NorCal mod, and it just folds all this back, just gives you a little extra room to be able to clear. But I don't know if that would even be enough for mine, and I don't really want to take a chance. So I'm just going to cut it out and weld in some metal. I just kind of what I want to do is just bring it down kind of through here and just get all this out of here. And then I'll weld in a piece of metal and just make it look as factory as I can. Obviously, you know, it's gonna probably look a little odd down at the bottom because it'll curve in, but it should be okay, and I would rather it look just slightly odd instead of just ruining a new fender as soon as I get the truck done. So one of the potential problems I might run into, and I'm not sure yet until I get the fenders on and kind of get them trimmed up, is this pinch weld right here. So it's the pinch weld where the rockers ties into the lower cow, I guess. And if you trim too much back, the fenders will start hitting there, and obviously then that defeats the whole purpose of what I'm even doing. So I might have to kind of cut this all off and just kind of weld up the seam between the body and the lower cow, but I'm not exactly sure if I'll have to yet until I kind of get the fenders trimmed up and get them on. So this is my Cor Sport that I got. I have a few like parts trucks and parts and stuff out back. I had 3 Cor Sports, but I thought this one was all torn down, but I guess it has a little bit left that I got to take apart. But I'll get that stripped down and everything out of the way, so I don't have to worry about that when I'm trying to fit all that up. Okay, so I got the Cor Sport all torn apart. I did leave the center brace in it. I don't think it's gonna make a difference on strength wise, but it's not really in the way, so I'm not really worried about it. I did want to apologize if I sound weird. My allergies are acting up and I kind of feel like crap, but the truck's not gonna get done if I don't work on it. So I still gotta keep going. So I guess next thing, I'll get the Cor Sport set up on the front and I'll throw the fenders on and kind of get everything fitted up. I want everything to kind of be all squared up so it's gonna sit where it will eventually sit when the truck's all put together. But I wanna have it all in place so when I start cutting and doing all that, that I know I'm doing it even on both sides and everything's gonna match. I'd hate to do it on the ground and then put the fenders on and it's not the same on both sides. I'll probably also, just to make things a little easier, I'll probably pull the wheels off and get them out of the way, put it on jack stands or something, just so I have room to work on kind of in the areas back there, because those wheels are pretty big and I don't know if I'd even have room to do much working around them. Okay, so one very important thing. So when you're doing stuff like this, it would be easy, obviously, just put the jack stand like back there underneath the cab. But when you do that, all the weight is going to now hang down up here. And these frames and this whole body is really designed to all be sitting on its suspension. So when you do stuff like that and you're going to put these fenders and everything on, well, you might get it to line up, and then when you put the wheels back on and set it down, well, then it's going to roll back, and then everything's not going to fit right. So really what you want is you would want to put your jack stand right on your suspension components, so when it sits down, it's like pretty much the same as setting the weight of the vehicle on the wheels. And that way, when you line up your fenders and everything, when you put it back on its wheels, it's still going to fit the exact same. So really all I'm wanting to do right now is I'm just wanting to get some of the bolts in there, get it all lined up. You know, I'll put a few bolts up here, back there, up there, just kind of get it all in place where it needs to be. And I'll do the other side and make sure I kind of got everything just squared up right. And make sure the fenders aren't junk also, because there's always a good chance that they just might not fit and they're trash. So normally with most vehicles, what I do is I tend to start with just the bottom of the fender. These are a little different because the bottom has so much more play. normally on like the Silverado and Tahoe stuff, I like to start with the top up here, get this top corner lined up first. Because what you want to do is you want to work with what is already lined up. So we know the door is good, so we want to make the fender fit to the door. If we started up here and made that look good, well, by the time you get back here, it might not be. So start with either the top or the bottom. I would prefer on these the top, because there's a lot of room you can work with down there to make the bottom match the top, but not as much on the top. So I'll start up here, work my way down, and then come up to the front. All right, so I got this up here pretty good. It's in a little bit, but obviously this isn't the final fitment. This is just to mock it up so I can get these cut right. But overall, the gap's pretty good. I'm happy with the gap. Body line, it's hard to tell because the black and white, but I'm pretty happy with the body line. Everything seems to fit pretty good. Overall, the fender wasn't that bad. So I'll get the other one thrown up, and then maybe we can start cutting some stuff. This fender took a lot longer than I wanted. It was kind of a pain. I got it all on and it was fitting pretty good back there, and then by the time I got up here, it was way off. And I spent probably a good 45 minutes tweaking on it, trying to get it to fit. You can see it's still not 100%. The gap's out a little. Body line's good. I mean, distance gap's not bad. I'd like it a little tighter, but it's not bad. But it's out a little bit through here. So I'll have to work on that, but for now, I'm probably just gonna leave it how it is because it's good enough. But that's kind of the front back on. Okay, so it is the next day. It was starting to get a little dark and I just really was kind of just done for that point. But everything's pretty much ready lining up wise. So what I'm gonna do now, I guess, would be kind of start marking everything off on the fenders and kind of seeing how I want to cut it exactly, and then start making some templates so I can get it all cut out and fit it up. Okay, so for this first little bit, what I want to do, I guess to get started, is I'm going to kind of just figure out exactly how I want this to flow through here, get some measurements, all that, and I'll mark it out with some tape and just kind of figure out what's going to look good, what's going to work exactly. Just get a general layout of everything that I'm going to cut out, first of all. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. I'm gonna kind of go down through here, cut this out, which I originally marked this to kind of go with just the flow of the fender and just kind of gradually go in. But I don't really want to do the whole entire thing up through here. I want to kind of just work it down at the bottom. So I think what I'm gonna do is just kind of come in right here and I'll cut out this section. And then it tapers off down to here, and then the bottom, it will be a straight, even, it's like a little over an inch cut. So the very bottom will have an extra inch took off of it. So hopefully that whole entire inch should give me the room I need to be able to clear, which it should. I mean, a NorCal alone will do quite a bit for being able to clear, because you mostly just need kind of this back in here took off. But if I'm taking off all the way up to here, I should be able to be just fine. Alright, so there's no going back now. Safety glasses, because you don't want to lose your eyes, but I guess we're going to cut this out, see how this goes. Hopefully we don't completely ruin this, because there's no going back now. Alright, so I'm honestly really happy with how this worked. So when I pull the tape back there, you can see that here is where it went from just the big metal part where the inner fender bolts to the smaller little tab. So I cut that off, and then it cuts down through here and then goes down nice, and honestly it lines up perfect with the edge of the rocker panel right here. So what it looks like is I should just be able to cut this out like I was saying, and when I put my piece in, it should just fit really nice and flush up against there, and I shouldn't have to get into the actual part of the cab. Now the part that sucks about trying to make all this stuff is now I gotta pull the fender back off so I can cut out the pinch weld for the rocker, and then I can put the fender back on so I can get it lined back up so I can weld in my piece to replace what I cut off. Well, that's it. It's off. Next thing I'm gonna do is it has a little play because obviously that was where it was pinch welded together. So it's not gonna be the end of the world, but what I want to do is I'll go through here and kind of hold this tight, and I'll probably put, I don't know, 4 or 5 welds just kind of right here, and then I'll obviously grind them down and I'll re-seam seal it all. But I just want to put a few little welds just so it'll hold it in place, kind of just like the original spot welds were. But since they're not there, we need something, because I don't want it to ever possibly separate or get water in it, anything like that. Alrighty, so I got it welded. I mean, it's not great, but I was fighting with some wind and that was really screwing up my shielding gas, and the seam sealer that was in between that I wasn't able to get cleaned out. Both those were definitely not helping, but they hold. I messed with them to make sure that they would work. Maybe if I can get it to work, you'll see where I welded it. I stuck a lens over my camera, but I don't know if it was able to catch it or not, so if you see it, then I got it to catch. If not, then I don't know. But I got to figure that part out then. But it's welded. So now I'll throw the fender back on and start trying to figure out how I'm going to put a plate in there to kind of tie it all back in together. I got the fender all back on. It all lines up. I spent a little bit of extra time trying to get all my gaps and everything good before I finish this, but I'm really happy with it. Everything lines up good. The only thing right here, the body line on the door has more of a roll to it than the fender does, so at some point I'll have to tweak with that, clean it back up. But overall, it's on, fits nice. I'm real happy with this side at least. So next I'll start getting all this ready and coming up with a design on how we're gonna put it all back together and make it look halfway clean. Okay, so for the next part, I'm gonna be cutting out and designing the filler piece to go back in where I've cut out. So for doing that, I'm gonna use my really advanced computer CAD software, also known as my leftover chicken box, and I'm gonna cut that out and make a template out of that so we can then trace it onto the metal and get a good even cut. I got the piece cut. Now I got to go fit it up and make sure everything lines up good. Hopefully I cut it out right and measured it and marked it all right, or we'll be starting this over. But now I'm gonna go stick it on the fender and see how everything looks and fits. So honestly, that fits up pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. Obviously I'll have to, as I go up through here, I'll have to kind of work this in and kind of fold it back in. But the shape's on, looks good. So I'll clean it up and then we'll start welding it in. So as you can kind of see right here, I'm just spacing out my welds, probably about like roughly ½ an inch. And I'll do that, and then I'll just make my pass up through here, and then I'll stop and I'll let it cool down for just a little bit. And then I'll follow each weld. And then once I get my basic welds down, then I'll probably put like 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. Just keep doing a few little tacks. If you weld it up solid, obviously you're going to warp the whole fender, and then you're going to be having to fix it all. And I don't want to do that. So what I'll do is I'll just keep my weld spaced nice and evenly and just weld it up slowly. And then all I should have to do, if all goes well, is just grind it down, and then it's just a little bit of metal work, and there shouldn't really be any body work you have to do to it. Alright, so I got that all welded. As you can see here, it's all done. I got it all fit up into place, all welded up. It's welded solid now. So really all I gotta do now is just go through. I'm gonna grind it all down and kind of clean it up and see how it transitions in. So it's all ground down. I got it. I'm pretty happy with it. If I get it to focus, okay. So you can kind of see right there. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of mud work because where this was lined up with this, and this is a different level, so it has to transition in kind of a little odd, but I'll just do a little mud work to kind of clean that up. But overall, this came out really nice. There's a few little pinholes you can see there, but it's so minor and I don't want to do anything that can maybe cause it to blow through. So I'm just gonna leave it, and I mean, honestly, I'm really happy with it. It rolls over nice, it looks clean, so hopefully should be fine. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but overall, I'm pretty tickled with it. I think it came out pretty nice. Alright, so now that I got that all done, I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of self-etching primer, just so I can, you know, not have to worry about it rusting. And I like to use the self-etching because the self-etching primer has an acid in it that helps bite into the metal. It actually etches into it, and it's just a better bite. There's obviously plenty of good primers that work for bare metal, but certain stuff like this, I like to just use just a little bit. It don't take much. Just spray it with a few coats of self-etching and you should be just fine. Alright, well, that's it, but for one side. I still have a whole nother side to do. I'm not gonna make you watch all that. I'll just do it and then I'll show that when it's done. So I'll be back here in a minute. Alright, well, this side's done. I got it all finished up. It's in primer. So really, both sides are now done, and hopefully I can now turn. I'll show you here. This, I mean, it looks about like the other side, if I can get the camera to focus. But it came out nice. I was real happy with it. I spent some more time fitting up the fender to get it all lined up a little better. But I'm real happy with this side also. Here's the cool part though. If you come around here, put a wheel on it, and it clears. It clears by quite a bit. I got plenty of room in there, and that's full lock. So I'm really happy with that. Hopefully, which now obviously there's no motor in it, so there will be a little extra weight. But hopefully with the weight of the motor, everything should still be fine. But as long as it stays like that, I should be just fine. I'm honestly tickled to death with how it came out. Alright then, well, I guess that's it. I got everything done that I was wanting to try to get done. So I guess next part I'll pull everything back off, and I'll probably start cleaning up on the frame, working on the wiring, trying to get all that stuff ready so then I can get the motor set in and hopefully get it running here soon. So I guess some point I'll make another part, and we'll see you then.